Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of February 3rd in the year 2024. I'm Michael James. Once again, I'm up here in Chicago's 49th Ward, and we're going all the way to Austin, Texas now, because we're going to talk with my friend, the one and only Thorne Dreyer. We go way back. We both have a long history in SDS, Students for Democratic Society. Thorne has gone on to have a rich history in journalism, broadcasting, and progressive politics. And I like to interview people who've been around a while, been organizers, activists, so that we have some, recording of people who have worked to change the world. He wants to talk more particularly about a wonderful new book out, and we're going to focus on that, but we'll hit on a lot of other things. His new book is called Making Waves, and it is a collection of interviews from his show, Rag Radio. Good morning to you. Good afternoon, whatever time it is. How are you, Thorne?
I'm just fine, Brother James. How are you?
I'm good. I'm okay.
I'm good.
Yesterday, we canceled the show, the recording, because the heat was out. It's still out, but we're in a warm, toasty bedroom.
Okay, cool.
So tell us
I'm
a
glad
little
you're
bit
toasty.
about.
I'm glad you're toasty.
I like to be toasty. So, Thorne, tell us a little bit about not only. Let's start with Rag Radio, and then we'll get to the book off of that.
Okay. Well, to start with Rag Radio, I have to say a little bit about the Rag. The Rag, of course, was an underground newspaper we published starting in 1967, and it lasted 11 years. And am I getting that right, or was it 66? I have lost a lot of brain cells, but and so it was a very important. It was kind of it followed, it set a tone. It was one of the first underground newspapers to kind of combine politics and culture, and it was a pretty big deal. And it lasted longer than most underground newspapers, and it became kind of a legend around here. So then the Rag lasted 11 years, and then we decided to kind of reinvent it. In 2005, we had a reunion, and then we had another one about 10 years later. And dozens of people came from all over the place, including other parts of the world, to join us in the reunion. And we had all kinds of wonderful stuff going on. But it set in motion some new political action, and it got us all going. And one thing you got to understand is that there's a community in Austin that continues. It doesn't go away. So there were a lot of people who worked on the Rag who are still involved in what we're doing. So we started a thing called the Rag Blog, and which for a while was a really pretty hot commodity. We still are publishing it. And we started Rag Radio, and we've done about 500 shows, over 500 shows now. We do it on a community radio station, KOOP, a cooperatively run radio station, which we believe is the only one in the country like that. And it's also rebroadcast on a couple of other stations. So it's cool. We have great guests. We've had a wonderful time with the show, and we're keeping going. No end in sight.
No, you are. I actually had the honor of being on your show way back 2013 when I was following my kids' band, then Twin Peaks, and was on your show for a little bit. And then you most recently had me on again. You've been on this show, but it's been a long time.
Right.
I like to talk about not only my show, your show, but Klonsky has a show. So we kind of like pushing progressive radio. And in our case, we go YouTube and TV, et cetera.
We have all our podcasts up at the Internet Archive.
It's very rich. You have an awful lot of stuff. And, I did some writing for you for a while. I did 40 something pieces, and I really appreciate that you gave me that opportunity. I got hung up in 1984, but there's more to come. Speaking of more to come, you got this book, and it's really, book. I not only do I love the layout of the book, the look of the book, the feel. You know, there's a lot of books out there that just don't feel right, just to touch them and look at them. This is nice. Tell us about this book and how you came to have it published at the Briscoe Center in Texas.
Okay, well, of course, I've done all these shows and I had all this material, and I gave the Briscoe Center a lot of the shows, so they've got a lot of them. I've got a collection basically of shows at the Briscoe Center, and I got to talking to Don Carlton, who's the editor, or is the general manager of the director. Thank you. Of the Briscoe Center, which is the Briscoe Center for American History at the University of Texas. And so we decided to do this book, and it's distributed by UT Press, and I've had a great time doing it. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun, and it's a collection of interviews that I have done on Rag Radio, which includes people that know you folks know, like Tom Hayden and Bernadine and Bill, and a lot of other movement people, but also it includes writers and artists and musicians and that kind of thing. So the book has some of the Dan Rather and Robin Rather, his daughter. It's their first father-daughter interview, and it's wonderful because we talked to Dan Rather about when he called the Houston Astros baseball, the AA Houston Astros baseball team. He was an announcer for it, and they did. They didn't travel with the team. They had somebody at the game with a wire, and they were just typing in and telling them what happened. And so hit a single to right field, and so Rather had to say, and he he slams one through the hole. And so it was funny. I asked him if anybody ever messed up or whatever. And he said, well, sometimes one of the guys would be one of the sound effect guys, or the other guy would maybe had had some adult beverages. And so it was, so we talk about a lot of stuff with people that you wouldn't expect to talk about. I talked to Tom Hayden about baseball too, because he had played baseball a lot. So anyway, and you played a lot of sports. You're a sportsman.
I did play football in college. We weren't a powerhouse and I wasn't the best player, but I did get to play. And I do follow a lot of sports. I like sports. I think there's good sports has a lot to do with cooperation and teamwork and working together. Let me ask you, Thorne, this is full of great interviews, and some of the other people in it are Bernie Sanders, Jim Hightower, and Kinky Friedman. I was wondering if you have a favorite in the book. Do you have a favorite one or two or three interviews?
Well, it's hard to say. I love the one with Dan Rather and his daughter Robin. It was great. She's a major environmentalist, and so we talked about the environment. They're a little different in their approach to things, but Dan Rather is pretty progressive, and so that was one of my favorites. I had a great interview with Paul Krasner. Actually, it was two parts that I put together into one interview, and we talked a lot about early Mad Magazine and all kinds of stuff like that. And Krasner's a trip, and in fact, I dedicated the book to several people who are in the book who no longer are with us, and that included Paul Krasner and Tom Hayden, incidentally. Yeah. And I had a wonderful interview with Bill Kirchen, the musician, and David Amram, you may know, and Bernie Sanders was great. It was fun to interview him. He was on the floor of the Congress, and when he talked to us, and that was right before he was coming to Austin to do a town hall, and it was right before he announced that he was going to run. And I asked him on the show. I said, "Okay, can you break it now? Can you tell us that you're going to run for president?" And he said, "No." He said, "We'll find out soon enough," something like that. So, but Bernie Sanders was great to talk to. I talked to Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, who's
she's been a guest on this show too. I love her.
She's great. She's terrific. So, it was just Jim Hightower is always a hoot. I don't know if people know Jim Hightower, but he was the former agriculture commissioner of Texas, but he's been a major force in a lot of progressive stuff over the years.
Well, let me ask you just a brief little thing. What's the difference between the Briscoe Center publishing your book and the University of Texas who distributes it?
The
Is it like
Briscoe Center, the Briscoe Center is a major uh, um, I mean, they have major collections. A lot of them left, a lot of them progressive. People wouldn't be surprised. Would people be surprised to find that out? And so, the UT Press is a massive operation. They publish a lot more books, but they did all kinds of books. Everything that the Briscoe Center does has something to do with Texas history, and it's it's so that's the main difference. The Briscoe Center is a more hands-on operation. We had a great time doing it.
Is it like
UT
an
Press,
University of Texas?
huh?
Is it like an imprint or another little
Yeah,
University of Texas?
it's a division. It's a division, and our book, by the way, won was a selection of the Texas Book Festival. Our friend Alice Embry also wrote a memoir, which was selected for the Texas Book Festival. So we had a double dipper, and we did a big event outside at the Capitol when they had the Texas Book Festival. Alice and I, and it was great, full house, great crowd, had a lot of fun. So
well, I want to move a little bit toward the you as a progressive. And, Texas in the news. I just saw today, the governor of Texas, kind of a right-wing guy. He is challenging Biden over the barbed wire. We recently had a segment on the show, David Romo, on the history of barbed wire on the border, which was pretty interesting.
yeah.
But Texas, a lot of people think of it as right wing. I go to El Paso pretty regularly for basketball in the barrio. I've been hearing for 20 years how Texas is moving blue. I'm wondering, I know you, and I know I've known other people in Austin. Austin is definitely not a red kind of a place, even though
Neither is Houston.
Yeah,
Houston is also
pretty
very
progressive.
progressive.
Tell us a little bit about the progressives in Texas. You even might want to talk about your own mom and dad in Houston, because I thought your introduction was really wonderful, and you included some family history. Share that with us.
Okay, yeah. Well, my parents were. My mother was a major Houston artist, Margaret Webb Dreyer, and my father was a newspaper man and a creative writer. And so they made quite a team. And so basically, I was born to a newspaper man and a abstract expressionist. And so it was quite a scene. They had an art gallery, and I hung out at the art gallery a lot when I was a kid. And they took me down to the press club and all this kind of stuff. They were very important figures in Houston, and they also were targets of the Ku Klux Klan. As was Space City, the newspaper that I also published or helped publish in Houston. And the Klan shot up the art gallery. They shot a bullet into a mosaic wall, an interior mosaic wall, and my mother just put a circle around it and didn't repair it because she considered it a badge of honor. And so the Klan got all riled up because we invited Abby Hoffman to come to speak in Houston and speak at Herman Park and whatever. And so that's when they started. They really got on their high horse. But I mean, they bombed the Pacifica radio station off the air twice. So, and it was the only radio station in the history of this country that's ever been bombed off the air even once. Wow. But so my parents were great people, and they inspired me. And I think a lot of what I became. You know what I mean? They were very active. My mother especially was extremely active against the war in Vietnam and for civil rights, and was just out there in the community. And in addition to when she died way too young, there was a posthumous show of her work at the Contemporary Arts Museum in Houston. And then St. Thomas University had a retrospective of her work. So she was highly honored. She was and extremely revered. As Pete Gershon in his book about contemporary art, he just called her the much beloved Margaret Webb Dreyer. So they gave that, and much of what got me started and got me on my path was being around the gallery and knowing all the people, and it got me started not only into progressive politics, but ultimately into doing interviews, because so many of the people, there were a lot of the people I interviewed that I had already known over the years. I knew Dan Rather from when I was a little kid, so it was great. Houston is a great city. Houston's a very cool city, I think, and and there's not, one of the things about Texas is that it's divided up between rural and urban, and urban Texas is and it's just that the Republicans have been so good at building and consolidating power, and so it doesn't really reflect what Texas is, I don't think.
Well, I hope Texas will flip a little bit. Let's one of the things you talked about Houston, which not only had all the people who are already in Houston, but got a whole lot of people who had to move out of Louisiana, after the flood down there. And
Houston opened its arms.
They did. And I'm hoping Chicago will continue to open its arms to all the immigrants that we're getting. But speaking of Texas, but I did notice that the mayor of Dallas, who was an African-American, was a Democrat. He flipped and he went Republican. I don't know if you have any comments on that, but
I don't really know much about that. I don't know what brought that about. And I don't know how the people in Dallas have responded to that. So I really don't, I can't help much, but I think it's pretty odd. The only large Texas city with a Republican leadership was Fort Worth.
Yeah.
So
Texas has always been an inspiration to me in a way. I mean, for a while I was into calling everyone from Texas jive Texas turkeys, which is an expression I heard up in Colorado one time. But some of the best people I've known are out of Texas or in Texas, and I know people are working for good. Do you have any sense of the direction and where things are going politically? I mean, even in Austin, talk a little bit about Austin, which a lot of people know because of South by Southwest, or they may know about paintings of armadillos leaping over highways, like at the Baltic Gas Company with Shiva's headband. It's always been kind of a neat place. Talk a little bit more about Austin and your beloved state of Texas.
So sadly, so much of the old Austin is being torn down and is all the old institutions, the places like Threadgill's and that we all, that up until a couple of years ago, we would all, when people would come to town, we'd take them there, and Threadgill's had all of the old, it had famous pianos and all this posters, because there was a great poster tradition in Austin. And of course, Gilbert Shelton, the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, started in Austin, started at the Rag. And so it's losing a lot of that. It's losing a lot of that. I mean, it's become a tech city in a lot of ways. And so with the tech city comes the kind of that techie libertarian thing, but it's still a lefty city. And I like it because there's just so much interesting energy here.
Am I correct that the congressional districts are divided in such a way that even though Austin, a large growing city with a progressive lean, doesn't have a congressional representative that's blue?
Well, it's like they just created these big slices or these long corridors, I should say. And so, what it is, you should have more representatives than you have. Because the Republicans are so good, like I said before, at consolidating power, and so it's sad, and I don't know. I mean, Texas really was moving blue. I mean, purple. We all started to say, well, it's a purple state, purple state, And now it's, with the governor has become a real Trumpite. Just and so much of Texas now, and it's because of the legislature. It's because of the right-wing legislature.
Well, we clearly have our work to do, and I know you're going to be at it, and I will be too. We got an election in November. How about we only have a minute left, Thorne. I know that you deserve more time, and I'm inviting you back anytime you want to come on. But why don't you tell a little bit about how people can talk a little bit about your book, your show, and how people can get a hold of you.
Okay. The Rag Radio is broadcast on KOOP 91.7 FM in Austin, but it's also streamed at koop.org. So anybody can listen to it. Also, you can go to the Internet Archive and search Rag Radio, and you can find all of our old shows. You can get the book by either going to the Briscoe Center for American History at the University of Texas, or just go to the University of Texas Press. You can buy it either way. And you can also buy it through Amazon or something, but it's out there and about there. But I would go straight to the Briscoe Center. We're thrilled with how well the book is done. You never get rich off books.
Let me ask you, Thorne, what's your T-shirt say?
Oh, it says Hunter Thompson, Fear and Loathing. It's actually the cover of the book. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, a savage journey to the heart of the American dream.
Well, I've got my Rag Radio shirt on,
and that's great. Those there aren't very many of those left, I don't think. Feed your head.
You're a wonderful guy, and I'm really glad that we're friends, that we can support each other's endeavors, because we're in it for the long haul. And
that's right.
We've got to keep taking care of ourselves and sharing that vibe with others, so that we have plenty of troops out there to make the world a better place.
Okay. And I love what you're doing up there. Thank you very much for having me.
And everybody.